Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's Friday, Shabbat Shalom this evening to my Jew crew, the 23rd of January 2026, and the time is 12:36 p.m. It's a bit of a murky, miserable day. I don't know if it's going to rain, but it just doesn't look right out there, and it's windy, and the birdies could have gone outside because it's just really cloudy, but I've decided to keep them in with me. I think they're a bit disappointed, to be honest. I've decided to keep them in with me this afternoon as the weather improves markedly. There's a big butterfly flying past in the garden. And I'm late. I'm late getting organised. My hair's still wet. I had a shower late. I woke up late. Had a really awful dream about my daughter Jasmine drowning at the age of 8 years old, which is not factual in reality, people of Earth. She's actually 38. But it was a quite traumatic dream because I was taking her to show her this beautiful lake, and we're walking and meandering through all this apartment building complexes, like we call them unit complexes here, units or apartments. And I said, if we walk up the back here, there's this wonderful lake I want to show you. And she was walking ahead of me, and she was wearing her Sinai College school uniform that I remember well from when I sent them to Sinai College. And she's sort of walking ahead of me, but, avoidant and nonchalant, which is basically how she spent her entire childhood and adulthood with me, avoidant and nonchalant. And didn't really like me particularly much. I think she kind of loved me till she was about 7, and then something changed. And, well, the divorce was a big eruption to their little world views. And anyway, she developed a pet hate for me from then on. And look, to be honest, I kind of get it. It's hard to have your parents separate and then be cast into abject poverty, and then have a mother who was freshly strangled, so deeply traumatized and, quite frankly, in and out of ordinary reality and off my head most of the time, and not coping. And then instead of things improving, there were 2 more strangulations and 18 months of threats from the Rosilio family, and it just was endless. And it's why my kids hate me and resent me to this very day. So anyway, I mean, I can say that logically, but emotionally it's a bit hard to fucking take that I got abandoned and rejected and neglected for events that were beyond my control, and I was actually just merely trying to survive and keep my little family together, which I did do quite courageously and with great determination. It's all about keeping my little family together. But they don't acknowledge that, my children. They don't comprehend the immense emotional torture that I was put through and what it took to keep us together. Anyway, but in the dream, she's 8 years old, and I'm taking her, to the back of this housing development, all these lots of units, and just got terrible pain in my guts. It's psychosomatic, that, isn't it? Just now when I'm telling my lived realities, it does give you a pain in the guts. My entire life is a giant fucking guts ache, and a face ache, and a mental ache as well. But anyway, it's enough already. But I'm reporting this dream here on YouTube and on Facebook because I'm worried about my daughter. I had Spirit come on my YouTube video the other day, if you recall, saying, your daughter needs you. They didn't say which daughter. And what did I reply? My daughter couldn't give a flying fuck about me. And anyway, I have Crystal's phone number, but she's got me on block, so I can't access her. And Jasmine, I haven't had her phone number for many, many years. I don't know how to contact her. All I know is that she lives in Sydney. But I'm starting to worry that the spirits weren't lying when they said my daughter needs me, and now I'm having nightmares about Jasmine drowning, because that's a bit odd, people of Earth. It's a bit out of left field. And I pay attention when things come at me left of the middle and out of the field, literally out of the source field, dredged up either from my own subconscious or randomly from spirit intercession, passing on messages to me and telling me that it's important, but weirdly speaking to me in Italian. Maybe my daughter's living with an Italian or married to an Italian. I wouldn't know what her situation is now. We've literally been estranged now for 20 years, since 2026. In 2006. I did see her, as I wrote in the little blurb about the dream, I did see her the last time in May 2015, just when we were saying goodbye to Crystal, who was boarding a plane to Ireland. But she was just sneering at me and gruff, and I was trying to ask her questions and trying to connect with her. She made it plain she didn't actually want anything to do with me, even though she was present for the Bon Voyage dinner. She would just snap at me and sneer, and I thought, what is it? What is it I birthed from my own loins? What is it I created out of this nothing but fucking ugliness? And bear in mind, my mother and I were estranged for many years, for vastly different reasons, far more pertinent than the reasons my daughters have for being estranged to me. Intergenerational trauma, though, it's a gift that keeps giving, people of Earth. Anyway, I'm concerned because in the dream she was 8 years old and she's walking ahead of me. And I just finished saying to her, have you done your homework? And literally in that tone of voice, like not being critical or demanding, just trying to connect to my child. Have you done your homework? And she sort of half turned to me and she said, yes, most of it. And then turned her back, kept walking, and I said, oh, that's good, darling. And then I said, oh, well, here's the lake, and isn't it pretty? And we're looking at, I was looking at all the glittering sunlight playing on the water, which is one of my favourite things to look at, actually. Light refractions and the way it plays. Yesterday I posted a video of it playing on the bathroom floor, coming through my bathroom fly screen. I'm interested in light and shadow and the contradictions. No, that's not the word. The contrast and the I guess the merging of boundaries, and then the interplay as they separate, and yin and, I keep saying yin and yang lately, don't I? Life really is yin and yang, holding each other by the heel, trying to grab on and keep everything you love and keep boundaries, but at the same time keeping memory and love alive. And it's a difficult dance for me. It's a very difficult dance. It's one I failed at spectacularly many times. But anyway, so I'm looking at this shimmering light play on the water, and I turned to say to Jasmine, isn't it pretty here? And just as I turned to say, isn't it pretty, we were walking along the edge of the lake, and I had no sense of any danger, because I was walking behind her as well through the, what I thought was solid land and shallows. And she literally, in front of my eyes, just sank like a stone and dropped out of sight under the water. I was in so much shock. I'm just like looking at, this is in the dream, I'm looking at her, looking at the water where she was, going, how is this even possible? So of course I run after her, and she's not a struggle, not a splash, just like something just dragged her and disappeared her. And the emotions I went through in the dream was as if it was real life, as if it was really happening. So I let out this ear-piercing, harrowing scream, and I dive into the water, reaching down, hoping to at least grab her by her hair and pull her up or find her in the water. No sign of her, just completely gone. I'm still emotional just remembering the dream. And I know it's not real, people of Earth. Jasmine is 38. She earns $100,000 a year as a PA somewhere in Sydney. I have no idea where, presumably somewhere close to the inner city. If she's earning that kind of money, she'd have to be available for the work. She's got a partner that my elder daughter Crystal said, they have a good relationship. She's happy. Why am I having nightmares of my daughter drowning at age 8? It's a bit odd. Anyway, in the dream continued a little bit longer after that event. Me diving in the water and scrabbling to try and grab her. I guess that's mirrors real life. Me scrabbling, trying to understand and reach acceptance of how badly my daughters, both of them, have actually treated me, but at the same time still wanting very much to be their mother. It's a bit pathetic, isn't it, when you think about it? Why would you want to mother someone that didn't want you? It's insane. It is insane. Anyway, so the dream continues with 3 or 4 men hear my screams and come running, probably people living in the nearby units, and they also, my daughter, she's literally just sunk like a stone in front of me, and they can see I'm all wet and that I've been trying to find her, and they all dive in, and some of them even swim a bit further down the lake, and we're all screaming her name and reaching for her, and our hands in the water reaching. Gone, completely gone. And then I woke up and I thought, why the fuck can't I just have one morning without dreaming? Some of the dreams haven't been trauma dreams like that. Some of them have been, just little stories or little narratives. But I just woke up, I started shaking, and I actually thought if I had her phone number and knew how to contact her, I would have actually called her and said, is everything okay with you, Jasmine? Because I know you don't want anything to do with me, and I get it, it's your choice, you're an adult woman, but I'm picking up vibes that there's something terribly, terribly wrong. And my vibes are usually correct, to be honest. But how crazy would that be to get a phone call from your mother you despised, asking, are you all right? Are you all right? Even if I had her number, I would have hesitated to make that call. And I haven't had any contact with Jared since the Bondi terrorist attack that just happened to be on the day that we had an outing, and so I don't know what's going on with him, whether he's still alive, died of some fucking diabetic hypo or something. I don't know. No contact. So I'm not inclined to ring him and say, can you ask Crystal to find out from Jasmine if she's okay, because Crystal hates being asked to contact Jasmine because they're actually not really in contact either. So there's no one to ask, and there's no way of knowing if something terrible has happened. I don't perceive that she's drowned, people of Earth. That was just the imagery that my subconscious was using to describe the level of distress and the disappearing from a view, and I guess the in the dream quite permanent disappearance, not to be ever heard from or seen again. Awful, isn't it? This is my life, people of Earth. This is my fucking life. But anyway, I posted it, you know, the dream that I record, because I record all my dreams, no matter how crazy or distressing or nonsensical, which most dreams are nonsensical. I did post it. I thought, just on the off chance she might see it and she might actually send a message to me somehow that she's okay and not to worry and everything's copacetic. And anyway, it might just also just be my complex PTSD dredging up old memories, watching her in her little uniform, asking her about homework, having her ignore me as usual, and then combining it with some dreadful event so that I can process the trauma that my children are not in my life and haven't been for, in Jasmine's case, 20 years, and Crystal's case, 2.5 years this trot, but there was 3 years prior to that. The constant estrangements and the constant mental health issues and the constant debasements. I've lived it all my life with my own parents and paedophile godfather and half-sister and all of it, that the soul deep cutting ugliness of it all. I've lived it. It's been too much for too long, she says, and yet I keep going. For my tutto bellissimo life that the spirits keep telling me I'm going to have one day. We'll see. Probably in the next dimension. That's probably what they're telling me. Don't worry, Mama T, when you get to the other side, it's going to be very, very beautiful. You'll be immersed in a love that is eternal and not able to be fractured by greed, corruption, societal mores, COVID vaccines, pedophiles, divorce, abuse dynamics, narcissism, psychopathology, sociology, sociopathology, borderline patterning. There'll be none of that. It'll all just be resolved. That's what they tell us. I wonder if that's another lie too. We just struggle and suffer and then end up a piece of charcoal or rotted down flesh into the earth. Well, at least that way we get kind of recycled, I suppose. Anyway, on a happier note, because life has to be uplifted and dragged up from the morass of hellscape that I have lived in for 60.5 years, let's continue reading Chapter 2, The Strawberry Pink Villa by Gerald Durrell. The villa was small and square, standing in its tiny garden with an air of pink-faced determination. Its shutters had been faded by the sun to a delicate creamy green, cracked and bubbled in places. The garden, surrounded by tall fuchsia hedges, had flower beds worked in complicated geometrical patterns marked with smooth white stones. The white cobbled paths, scarcely as wide as a rake's head, wound laboriously round beds, hardly larger than a big straw hat. Beds in the shape of stars, half-moons, triangles and circles, all overgrown with a shaggy tangle of flowers run wild. Roses dropped petals that seemed as big and smooth as saucers, a flame red, moon white, glossy and unwrinkled. Marigolds like broods of shaggy suns stood watching their parents' progress through the sky. In the low growth, the pansies pushed their velvety, innocent faces through the leaves, and the violets drooped sorrowfully under their heart-shaped leaves. The bougainvillea that sprawled luxuriously over the tiny front balcony was hung as though for a carnival, with its lantern-shaped magenta flowers. I just saw a car just like my daughter Crystal's driving up here, but it was an Asian lady driving it, so it's not my daughter. But see, do you see how the synchronicities start to fall thick and fast? It's bizarre people are. In the darkness of the fuchsia hedge, 1,000 ballerina-like blooms quivered expectantly. The warm air was thick with the scent of 100 dying flowers, and full of the gentle, soothing whisper and murmur of insects. As soon as we saw it, we wanted to live there. It was as though the villa had been standing there waiting for our arrival. We felt we had come home. It does sound pretty though, doesn't it? Having lumbered so unexpectedly into our lives, Spiro now took over complete control of our affairs. It was better, he explained, for him to do things as everyone knew him, and he would make sure we were not swindled. Don't you worry yourself about anything, Mrs. Darrells, he had scowled. Leaves everything to me. So he would take us shopping, and after an hour's sweating and roaring, he would get the price of an article reduced by perhaps 2 drachmas. This was approximately a penny. It was not the cash, but the principle of the thing, he explained. Sounds like my ex-husband. Oh, that was irritating beyond belief. Irritating. The fact that he was Greek and adored bargaining was, of course, another reason. It was Spiro who, on discovering that our money had not yet arrived from England, subsidised us, and took it upon himself to go and speak severely to the bank manager about his lack of organisation. That it was not the poor manager's fault did not deter him in the least. It was Spiro who paid our hotel bill, who organised a car to carry our luggage to the villa, and who drove us out there himself, his car piled high with groceries that he had purchased for us. It's very generous, isn't it? A stranger you just met. His mother must have been quite pretty. Why I say that is because when we were on The Alanice coming back from, which was a Greek chartered ship, by the way. Coming back from, Germany. We embarked in Southampton. My mother had, met Uncle Case, and when he came to our cabin, saw that we had enormous basket full of fruit, huge fruit basket. He looked at my mother and he said, "Who gets you that fruit basket?" My mum said, "Oh, the purser." "Why?" He said, "I share a cabin with 4 other men, and trust me, we don't have such a big fruit basket. That's enough for 4 people, and we've got a measly little basket with barely any fruit in it." "What did you do to the purser, Gisela?" "Nothing," she said. "Nothing." She didn't do anything. She just was attractive. Greek men and my mother. That purser was so obsessed with my mother, he asked her to marry her and to disembark in Sydney with me and wait for him to return from New Zealand, because the last destination was New Zealand, which was where we were going. So when I come back to Sydney in a week on the turnaround, I'll pick you up and we'll fly to Athens and we'll marry and you'll live with me in Greece. My mother said, "That's all very nice. I haven't even dated you. I don't even know you." She said, "I have a home to go to of my own in Wellington. I own my own home. Why would I run off to Greece with you?" He was devastated. Really was devastated. It's funny, men forgetting the important part, like actually inviting a woman out and actually courting her, apart from throwing big baskets of fruit at her, actually taking the time to woo and have some kind of a courtship and eat dinners and go to movies or museums or other things that don't necessarily cost a lot of money, people of Earth. What did I get? Nothing but cheap cunts. Couldn't even take me out anywhere. Never mind, it's not about me, this story. So anyway, but I just thought, well, why, he completely missed the part where, you actually form a relationship with a woman before you decide that you want to marry her and drag her child into your nightmare. Then she did it again in France. My mother met some Frenchmen who also, I think she did date him a few times though, but he also wanted to marry her and bring me from, I was in Hamburg with my half-sister and brother-in-law, who were adults because they're 15 years older than me. My brother-in-law was 16 years older than me. But anyway, so how old was I? 8, and they were 15. My sister was 23. So I was stuck in Hamburg with them. Well, my mother frolicked all over Paris with this fabulous Frenchman, had a fabulous romance. And then he said, "Why don't you come bring Tanya and marry me and we'll raise her here in Paris?" That might have been okay, actually, except, all these men that were so quick to want to subsume my mother and a child they hadn't even met. We know what their proclivities were, weren't they? They had no intention of just inflicting themselves just upon my mother. I was always considered the bonus. Uncle Case even said that to me one time when I was a child. "You're the bonus." I've never wanted more to vomit in my mouth than I did that day, people of Earth. The bonus. But anyway, Uncle Case on the Alanice coming back from Europe, "Why have you got bigger baskets of fruit than me?" It was very generous of that Greek purser, wasn't it? It was very kind. He had such pure, loving, altruistic intentions. Not! But anyway, he wasn't, he didn't predate on me, that man. The one that predated on me was on the Fair Star going over to going to Europe, which was an Italian chartered ship. Sitmar Lines. I would sue the arse off them, but I think they went out of business sometime in the 80s. Running pedophile ships. All their crew were fucking creepy as fuck, chasing little girls down corridors and letting themselves into their cabin at night, trying to bloody maul us. Fucking bastards. But don't worry, my mother had a wonderful holiday. Also, traumatizer came up with a tropical disease that they couldn't explain. Broke literally out into hives. Fuck. Anyway, we didn't want to go into that ugliness, but life is ugly sometimes, and you have to be realistic about it and speak your truth and hold your truth and live your truth, and hopefully one day let it all go. Some days I'm good at letting it go, other days it just slams me, but it's partly because of that terrible dream about my daughter drowning right in front of me. Anyway. So yes, he piled his car high with groceries that he'd purchased for them. They seemingly accepted his generosity without question. Also, as a single mother, widowed, with 4 children to feed, I guess, you're grateful for any help you get. And you just hope that there aren't any invidious, sinister agendas behind it. You spend your whole time freaking out that someone's going to maul your kids. It's awful. That he knew everyone on the island and that they all knew him, we soon discovered, was no idle boast. Wherever his car stopped, half a dozen voices would shout out his name, and hands would beckon him to sit at the little tables under the trees and drink coffee. Policemen, peasants and priests waved and smiled as he passed. Fishermen, grocers and cafe owners greeted him like a brother. "Ah, Spiro," they would say, and smile at him affectionately as though he were a naughty but lovable child. They respected his honesty and his belligerence, and above all they adored his typically Greek scorn and fearlessness when dealing with any form of governmental red tape. On arrival, 2 of our cases containing linen and other things had been confiscated by the customs on the curious grounds that they were merchandise. Yet they didn't confiscate the other brother's case loaded with guns. It's a bit odd, isn't it? 1935 though. Between wars. Odd. So when we moved out to the strawberry pink villa and the problem of bed linen arose, Mother told Spiro about our cases languishing in the customs and asked his advice. "Gollies, Mrs. Dorrells," he bellowed, his huge face flushing red with wrath. Red with wrath. "Why's you never tells me's before? Them's bastards in the customs. I'll take you down there tomorrows and fix thems. I know them's alls and they knows me. Leaves everything's to me. I'll fix them. What a man. A man you can leave things to take charge and get things done. A man you can rely on. Might have accepted his groceries too. I want to cry when I think about it. Won't think about it. We won't think about it, people. The following morning he drove Mother down to the customs shed. We all accompanied them, for we did not want to miss the fun. Spiro rolled into the customs house like an angry bear. "Where's these people things?" he inquired of the plump little customs man. "You mean they're boxes of merchandise?" asked the customs official in his best English. "What do you think I means?" "They are here," admitted the official cautiously. "We've comes to takes thems," scowled Spiro. "Gets thems ready." He turned and stalked out of the shed to find someone to help carry the luggage, and when he returned, he saw that the customs man had taken the keys from Mother and was just lifting the lid of one of the cases. Spiro, with a grunt of wrath, surged forward and slammed the lid down on the unfortunate man's fingers. "What for's you open it, you son of a bitch?" he asked, glaring. The customs official, waving his pinched hand about, protested wildly that it was his duty to examine the contents. "Duties?" said Spiro with fine scorn. "What you means duties? Is it your duties to attack innocent foreigners, eh? Treats them like smugglers, eh? That's what you calls duties." Spiro paused for a moment, breathing deeply. Then he picked up a large suitcase in each great hand. Oh, I just got high pitch in my left ear. Right, go on now. And walked towards the door. He paused and turned to fire his parting shot. "I knows you, Christaki, so don't you go talkings about duties to me. I remembers when you was fined 12,000 drachmas for dynamiting's fish. I don't have any criminal talkings to me about duties." We rode back from the customs in triumph, all our luggage intact and unexamined. "Them's bastards thinks they owns the islands," was Spiro's comment. He seemed quite unaware of the fact that he was acting as though he did. Once Spiro had taken charge, he stuck to us like a burr. Within a few hours, he had changed from a taxi driver to our champion, and within a week he was our guide, philosopher, and friend. Moved quick, didn't he? Very pretty, Mama Daro. Very pretty indeed. I'm not casting aspersions on her good reputation, I might add. Just, you can be friends with men. Most of my wonderful friends in life have been males. Some females, but some males. Very loyal friends they were for remarkably long periods of time. And then they just dropped me like a hot cake. Anyway, one from my Jewish community, I won't name names just in case they watch my videos, you know. I don't expect them to, but you just don't know. Randomly this morning, followed me on Instagram. It's like, why? After all these years we haven't spoken. No acrimony, or, you know, we didn't end badly or anything like that, but it's amazing. Just amazing who still keeps an eye on me, even if I haven't spoken to them, sometimes for 10 or 15 years. That particular man, when was the last time I spoke to him or saw him? I think when I bought vanilla beans from him and his wife. Was I still friends with Gail at that time? I don't know. It might be a few years after that. It's at least 12 to 15 years since we last spoke. It's from my Jewish community, from my Reformed Jewish community. And I used to actually pray in a congregation a long, long time ago. We can still remember how the music died. Anyway, the music didn't die, but my connections to that befouled temple did die. There was simply too much corruption, deception, embezzling, slandering, viciousness, othering. It was a hotbed of evil. And when I wrote to them and asked them to remove my non-Jewish mother from the Yizkor list, because I didn't want to be haunted by her ever again at Yom Kippur, they wrote back that they have many non-Jewish parents and grandparents on their Yizkor list, and they simply refused to remove my mother. I went, well, that's okay, I'll remove myself then. And so I did. I don't want to be haunted by her in my temple when I'm praying to God. Being haunted by a woman who was savage to me most of my life, but whom I did defend to the nth degree against the Nazi libel they put upon me in that temple in 1989 to 1991, because what's right is right. Don't do that to people's mothers. Accuse them of being Nazis and their Jewish convert daughter and granddaughters. Filthy fucking cesspit of evil it was back then too, but I fought that. I fought it every inch of the way. Because of me, people who are not Jewish but have, you know, married or Jewish converted offspring can bring their children and their families and their friends to any simcha they choose without that viciousness. But you know, they still do it behind your back. It's just a seeping, boiling, you know, lava pit like Rotorua of sulfuric stink that you can almost smell it. You walk in there, the stink of duplicitousness and treachery and slander and viciousness. And really, what was it really about, that slander in 89? Because I had a freehold house at age 23 and newly migrated, and they perceived me tall poppy syndrome, wanted to cut me down a little bit. That was the subtext behind all of that. And then later on, what were they cutting me down for? Because I'd lost everything, was divorced and cast into dire poverty. Oh, then it really was a piranha fucking bloodlust, free-for-all blood feast on me and my daughters. Foul it was. So excuse me while I scream, and now you know why I don't participate in organised religion or any group that would have me as a member. As soon as I get involved with, you know, clubs or pubs or churches or synagogues or any other group where there's more than 2 people in it, somehow some arsehole decides to turn savagely on me. Why? Because I speak the truth and I don't back down and I don't lie and I don't obfuscate and I don't betray my own humanity and my own womanliness. I don't lie in beds with men grunting like a squalid pig pretending to like them to keep a roof over my head. And what else don't I do? Barely survive this fucking paradigm. Barely survive it. Why did I mention squatting like a squalid fucking whore pleasing a man? Because that friend that tried to add me today, or has added me, I allowed it because by and large he was a kind enough man. But he tried to set me up with some fellow at his bloody Passover Seder one year. Oh, it was degrading. I was treated like a hunk of meat. Don't ever do that to me, people of Earth. Set me up. You want to introduce me to a man, then you tell me beforehand. I've got a lovely man I think you'd like and you might like to meet. Would you consider coming to this party or celebration or whatever, ceremony, and would you like to meet? And then I get to at least have a choice in how I'm thrown into the fucking deep end. It's evil to do that, treat you like you have no agency in your life and no choice in your own, what happens to your vagina and your emotions and how you undertake life. If I want a partner, but I don't want to be treated like some dirty rag just thrown at someone like some fucking flailing conquest. Fuck off. It's what really enraged me, how they did that, you know, in the music scene with Scott's Machiavelli and fucking evil machinations. Throwing me at people like I was some whore. How dare you? But I let it pass because I thought they're my, you know, very sensitive trigger points that maybe I might overreact on at time to time. Turns out I wasn't overreacting. Just kept devolving and devolving and devolving until eventually he had to overtly try and fucking humiliate me at a gig. Overt. No longer covert. Showed me his true colours then and there. Like a dog. But don't worry, in 15 years' time he'll forget and he'll think that I've forgotten and it will be very sweet and they'll try to add me on Instagram and Facebook if such things still exist and they'll think that I've gotten over it and I might resume the friendship, and depending on my mood on that particular day in the space-time continuum, I might actually allow it, like I did today with that other gentleman, former friend from the community. Didn't really do me any harm in the broad scheme of things. But it just shows you how some people never ever forget me and never ever completely fucking let go of that tiny, 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 silvery spider's web thread of connectivity. And sometimes I have to just get the scissors and go and let the threads flail and reattach themselves to somewhere else, to someone else. It's not my monkey, not my circus. Just saying, disrespect me once, bad. Disrespect me twice, or very bad. Disrespect me 3 times. Bye-bye, motherfuckers. I don't care. I can live alone. Find myself on my own terms. I've been doing it for 31 years. Right. He became so much a member of the family that very soon there was scarcely a thing we did or planned to do in which he was not involved in some way. Triggered by that too. People subsuming your life. Well, he was always there, a bull-voiced and scowling, arranging things we wanted done, telling us how much to pay for things. I would have told him to fuck off at that too. Keeping a watchful eye on us all and reporting to Mother anything he thought she should know. Like a great brown ugly angel, he watched over us as tenderly as though we were slightly weak-minded children. To be fair, perhaps he'd never had children of his own and he was role-playing being a father figure or a parent of some kind. Sometimes you do that. You overcompensate for the lack of family in your own life. I'm guilty of doing that with the music scene too. Stepping into my mama tea role and just wanting to belong and be loved. And yes, I admit it was a bit pathetic, but you know, my dog had died. My daughter's elder daughter had abandoned me, and then last January, almost a year ago, on the 26th it would be 1 year, Charlie died, and with Charlie's death it all unravelled. Strange, isn't it? Really fucking strange, that. Anyway, we have these sweet little boys now. They're not Charlie. You're not like my Charlie boys, but you might be one day. Might sit on my shoulder and walk around the garden with me one day, you never know. Mother he frankly adored. I'd already realised that very early in the piece. And he would sing her praises in a loud voice wherever we happened to be, to her acute embarrassment. You ought to be careful what you do, he would tell us, screwing up his face earnestly. We don't want to worry your mothers. Whatever for, Spiro, Larry would protest in well-simulated astonishment. She's never done anything for us. Why should we consider her? Gollies, Master Lorries, don't jokes like that, Spiro would say in anguish. Just check on this very useless cooling thing I bought. Cost me $124 and it's a piece of crap and I'm livid, but it needs to be filled up with water. It's just a fan that blows cool air, not all that cool given. Anyway, I got scammed. It was naive of me and I got scammed. There's a lot of scamming went on in the last 12 months too. But anyway, each time I fought and got my money back. So what I probably should have done with this useless bloody thing, don't buy it ever, people of Earth. They're useless. I should have packed it up and sent it back and demanded my money back, but they probably would have made some excuse, you know. I really can't be bothered. I accept when I've bought stupid things and I should have known better and I wear the expense, but it's a lot of money for a useless fan. It really is. Anyway. Could have bought me half a sapphire or an opal. Nice dinner out somewhere nice, an outing. A day trip to Byron that thing could have bought me. Mustn't think about it. I'll go insane. Right. It's very rare that I, get upset about buying things. It's most things, you look at it later and go, oh well, it'll come in handy one day. But I very rarely resent it, but that thing I resent doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Keep me cool, people. Anyway, I'll have to save up money for another air conditioner because the heat's just getting worse and worse each year, and I've got the one in the lounge that was bought for me, but it doesn't keep this end of the house cool, so there was that. Anyway, why am I complaining? Life is tutto bellissimo. We'll carry on with the story. He's quite right, Spiro, Leslie would say very seriously. She's really not much good as a mother, My goodness. Very British, isn't it, to be that kind of backhanded, kind of insulting, denigrating humour. They think it's humorous, but is actually degrading and insulting. But anyway, she was good enough to get them to a very warm island in Greece, though, on probably very limited funds. She was good enough for that. How quickly they forget. Here I am defending a mother I don't even know. But what's true is true, people are there. Don't says that, Spiro would roar. Honest to gods, if I had a mother like yours, I'd goes down every mornings and kisses her feet. So we were installed in the villa, and we each settled down and adapted ourselves to our surroundings in our respective ways. Margot, merely by donning a microscopic swimsuit and sunbathing in the olive groves, had collected an ardent band of handsome peasant youths who appeared like magic from an apparently deserted landscape whenever a bee flew too near her or her deck chair needed moving. Sounds quite wonderful. Maybe we should have moved to Athens with that Greek purser. Certainly know how to treat a woman, don't they? How long does that last? Till the courtship's over and they're married and... Oh, that's negative thinking. There must be people who have wonderful, happy married lives. There must. Right. Mother felt forced to point out that she thought the sunbathing was rather unwise. After all, dear, that costume doesn't cover an awful lot, does it? She pointed out. Oh, Mother, don't be so old-fashioned, Margot said impatiently. After all, you only die once. This remark was as baffling as it was true, and successfully silenced Mother. It had taken 3 husky peasant boys half an hour sweating and panting to get Larry's trunks into the villa, while Larry bustled round them directing operations. One of the trunks was so big it had to be hoisted in through the window. Once they were installed, how can the window be bigger than the door? Never mind. Once they were installed, Larry spent a happy day unpacking them, and the room was so full of books that it was almost impossible to get in or out. Having constructed battlements of books around the outer perimeter, Larry would spend the whole day in there with his typewriter, only emerging dreamily for meals. On the second morning he appeared in a highly irritable frame of mind, for a peasant had tethered his donkey just over the hedge. At regular intervals, the beast would throw out its head and let forth a prolonged and lugubrious bray. Nothing like a donkey to make an ass of himself. Sometimes you've just got to have a prolonged and lugubrious bray, people of Earth. I mean, I get it completely. $124 and stupidity makes me want to bray myself. By all the gods. Right, I ask you, isn't it laughable that future generations should be deprived of my work simply because some horny-handed idiot, horny-handed, I don't think it's meant how I interpreted that, people of Earth, has tied that stinking beast of burden near my window? Larry asked. Yes, dear, said Mother. Why don't you move it if it disturbs you? My dear Mother, I can't be expected to spend my time chasing donkeys about the olive groves. I threw a pamphlet on theosophy at it. What more do you expect me to do? Study theosophy? Wouldn't be such a bad thing, would it? Maybe. The poor thing's tied up. Can't expect it to untie itself, said Margot. There should be a law against parking those loathsome beasts anywhere near a house. Can't one of you go and move it? Why should we? It's not disturbing us, said Leslie. That's the trouble with this family, said Larry bitterly. No give and take, no consideration for others. You don't have much consideration for others, said Margot. It's all your fault, Mother, said Larry austerely. You shouldn't have brought us up to be so selfish. I like that, exclaimed Mother. I never did anything of the sort. Well, we didn't get as selfish as this without some guidance, said Larry. In the end, Mother and I unhitched the donkey and moved it further down the hill. For the sake of peace, you understand. Leslie, meanwhile, had unpacked his revolvers and startled us all with an apparently endless series of explosions while he fired at an old tin can from his bedroom window, as you kind of do. After a particularly deafening morning, Larry erupted from his room and said he could not be expected to work if the villa was going to be rocked to its foundations every 5 minutes. Leslie, aggrieved, said that he had to practice. Larry said it didn't sound like practice, but more like the Indian Mutiny. Mother, whose nerves had also been somewhat frayed by the reports, suggested that Leslie practice with an empty revolver. Leslie spent half an hour explaining why this was impossible. At length he reluctantly took his turn farther away from the house, where the noise was slightly muffled but just as unexpected. In between, keeping a watchful eye on us all, Mother was settling down in her own way. The house was redolent with the scent of herbs and the sharp tang of garlic and onions, and the kitchen was full of a bubbling selection of pots, among which she moved, spectacles askew, muttering to herself. On the table was a tottering pile of books, which she consulted from time to time. When she could drag herself away from the kitchen, she would drift happily about the garden, reluctantly pruning and cutting, enthusiastically weeding and planting. For myself, the garden held a sufficient interest. Together, Roger and I learned some surprising things. Roger, for example, found that it was unwise to smell hornets, that the peasant dogs ran screaming if he glanced at them through the gate, and that the chickens that leaped suddenly from the fuchsia hedge, squawking wildly as they fled, were unlawful prey, however desirable. This doll's house garden was a magic land, a forest of flowers through which roamed creatures I had never seen before. Among the thick, silky petals of each rose bloom lived tiny, crab-like spiders that scuttled sideways when disturbed. Their small, translucent bodies were coloured to match the flowers they inhabited: pink, ivory, wine red, or buttery yellow. On the rose stems, encrusted with green flies, ladybirds moved like newly painted toys. Ladybirds pale red with large black spots, ladybirds apple red with brown spots, ladybirds orange with grey and black freckles. Rotund and amiable, they prowled and fed among the anemic flocks of greenfly. Carpenter bees, like furry electric blue bears, zigzagged among the flowers, growling fatly and busily. Hummingbird hawk moths, sleek and neat, whipped up and down the paths with a fussy efficiency, pausing occasionally on speed-misty wings to lower a long, slender proboscis into a bloom. Just mimicking it with my tongue. But I don't have a proboscis, so don't have to worry about that, people are there. What you doing, birdie boys? You're very quiet. You were very quiet yesterday too. Are you okay? Hope they're okay. Oh, quite tired now, people of Earth. Right, where were we? Right, among the white cobbles, large black ants staggered and gesticulated in groups round strange trophies: a dead caterpillar, a piece of rose petal, or a dried grass head fat with seeds. As an accompaniment to all this activity, there came from the olive groves outside the fuchsia hedge the incessant shimmering cries of the cicadas. Cicadas, cicadas, tomato, tomato, Potato, potato. Let's call the whole thing off. If the curious blurring heat haze produced a sound, it would be exactly the strange chiming cries of these insects. At first I was so bewildered by this profusion of life on our very doorstep that I could only move about the garden in a daze, watching now this creature, now that, constantly having my attention distracted by the flights of brilliant butterflies that drifted over the hedge. Gradually, as I became more used to the bustle of insect life among the flowers, I found I could concentrate more. I would spend hours squatting on my heels or lying on my stomach, watching the private lives of the creatures around me, while Roger sat nearby, a look of resignation on his face. In this way I learned a lot of fascinating things. I found that the little crab spiders could change colour just as successfully as any chameleon. Take a spider from a wine red rose where he had been sitting like a bead of coral, and place him in the depths of a cool white rose. If he stayed there, and most of them did, you would see his colour gradually ebb away as though the change had given him anemia, until, some 2 days later, he would be crouching among the white petals like a pearl. I do love pearls, real pearls, Baroque, large pearls. My mother had 2 beautiful Baroque pearl necklaces, one in grey, yes, kind of a silvery grey kind of pearl. They weren't natural, they were cultured, but they were Baroque, very large. And then she had another one that was, white. Both were stolen or sold off for that fucking con man's gambling habit. Bastards. But anyway, where were we? Ah, yes. Crouching among the white petals like a pearl. I discovered that in the dry leaves under the fuchsia hedge lived another type of spider, a fierce little huntsman with the cunning and ferocity of a tiger. He would stalk about his continent of leaves, eyes glistening in the sun, pausing now and then to raise himself up on his hairy legs to peer about. If he saw a fly settle to enjoy a sunbath, he would freeze. Then, as slowly as a leaf growing, he would move forward, imperceptibly, edging nearer and nearer, pausing occasionally to fasten his lifeline of silk to the surface of the leaves. Then, when close enough, the huntsman would pause. His legs shift minutely as he got a good purchase, and then he would leap, legs spread out in a hairy embrace, straight onto the dreaming fly. Never did I see one of these spiders miss its kill once it had manoeuvred into the right position. I'm getting rather thirsty. I've had 3 cups of tea and I'm thirsty again, people of Earth. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Just bear with me, I'll be back in a moment. I need water. Water. Ich schaffte mein, was ist so? Right. It hurts, boys, it hurts. You know why I am like this? It was too hot yesterday, now I'm depleted. depleted but not defeated. Some boys. Looking with a bloody lump. It really is a strange day, you know. It was so scathing hot yesterday, and it's, you know, not exactly cool, much cooler today, but it's grey and murky and miserable people around. It's a bit odd, isn't it? And you gotta check the water level in that stupid piece of plastic fucking junk. Dear God, yes. Right. I'm going to go back to bed when I finish this story. I wanted to go down, you know, to Chemist Warehouse and get my vitamin D, and I've run out of deodorant. I really do need the deodorant, especially in this heat, but can't be asked. I'm crawling to bed for a while and maybe get it later. We'll see. Or maybe I'll go down and get it now and then come home and crawl into bed. That would be a better use of my time, wouldn't it? Get the things I need and then collapse, people of Earth. Anyway, where were we? Continuing on with the story. All these discoveries filled me with a tremendous delight, so that they had to be shared, and I would burst suddenly into the house and startle the family with the news that the strange spiky black caterpillars on the roses were not caterpillars at all, but the young of ladybirds. I didn't know that. Really? Is he sure? Anyway, all with the equally astonishing news that lacewing flies laid eggs on stilts. This last miracle I was lucky enough to witness. I found a lacewing fly on the roses and watched her as she climbed about the leaves, admiring her beautiful fragile wings like green glass and her enormous liquid golden eyes. Presently she stopped on the surface of a rose leaf and lowered the tip of her abdomen. She remained like that for a moment and then raised her tail, and from it, to my astonishment, rose a slender thread, like a pale hair. Nearly did a spoonerism there. Then on the very tip of this stalk appeared the egg. The female had a rest, as she would, and then repeated the performance until the surface of the rose leaf looked as though it were covered with a forest of tiny club moss. The laying over, the female rippled her antennae briefly and flew off in a mist of green gauze wings. greatly relieved and released, no doubt, from the burden of fecundity. Anyway, perhaps the most exciting discovery I made in this multicoloured Lilliput to which I had access was an earwig's nest. I had long wanted to find one and had searched everywhere without success, so the joy of stumbling upon one unexpectedly was overwhelming. Like suddenly being given a wonderful present. I moved a piece of bark, and there beneath it was the nursery, a small hollow in the earth that the insect must have burrowed out for herself. She squatted in the middle of it, shielding underneath her few white eggs. She crouched over them like a hen, and did not move when the flood of sunlight struck her as I lifted the bark. I could not count the eggs, but there did not seem to be many, so I presumed that she had not yet laid her full complement. Tenderly I replaced her lid of bark. I think I can hear the lorikeets. Yes, that sounds like the lorikeets are here. From that moment I guarded the nest jealously. I erected a protecting wall of rocks round it, and as an additional precaution, I wrote out a notice in red ink and stuck it on a pole nearby as a warning to the family. The notice read, "Beware," spelt B-E-W-A-R. "Earwig nest. Quiet, please." Quiet spelt Q-U-I-A-T. Please spelt P-L-E-S-E. Sweet. It was only remarkable in that the two correctly spelled words were biological ones. Every hour or so, I would subject the mother earwig to 10 minutes close scrutiny. I did not dare examine her more often for fear she might desert her nest. Eventually, the pile of eggs beneath her grew, and she seemed to have become accustomed to my lifting off her bark roof. I even decided that she had begun to recognize me from the friendly way she waggled her antennae. To my acute disappointment, after all my efforts and constant sentry duty, the babies hatched out during the night. I felt that after all I had done, the female might have held up the hatching until I was there to witness it. However, there they were, a fine brood of young earwigs, minute, frail, looking as though they had been carved out of ivory. They moved gently under their mother's body, walking between her legs, the more venturesome even climbing onto her pincers. It was a heart-warming sight. The next day the nursery was empty. My wonderful family had scattered over the garden. I saw one of the babies some time later. He was bigger, of course, browner and stronger, but I recognized him immediately. He was curled up in a maze of rose petals, having a sleep, and when I disturbed him, he merely raised his pincers irritably over his back. I would have liked to think that it was a salute, a cheerful greeting, but honesty compelled me to admit that it was nothing more than an earwig's warning to a potential enemy. Still, I excused him. After all, he had been very young when I last saw him. I came to know the plump peasant girls who passed the garden every morning and evening. Riding side saddle on their slouching, drooping-eared donkeys, they were shrill and colourful as parrots, and their chatter and laughter echoed among the olive trees. In the mornings they would smile and shout greetings as their donkeys pattered past, and in the evenings they would lean over the fuchsia hedge, balancing precariously on their steeds' backs and, smiling, hold out gifts for me. A bunch of amber grapes still sun-warmed, some figs black as tar, striped with pink, where they had burst their seams with ripeness, or a giant watermelon with an inside like pink ice. As the days passed, I came gradually to understand them. What had at first been a confused babble became a series of recognizable separate sounds. Then, suddenly, these took on meaning, and slowly and haltingly, I started to use them myself. Then I took my newly acquired words and strung them into ungrammatical, and stumbling sentences. Our neighbours were delighted, as though they had conferred some delicate compliment by trying to learn their language. They would lean over the hedge, their faces screwed up with concentration, as I groped my way through a greeting or a simple remark. And when I had successfully concluded, they would beam at me, nodding and smiling, and clap their hands. By degrees, I learnt their names, who was related to whom, which were married and which hoped to be, and other details. I learned where their little cottages were among the olive tree groves, and should Roger and I chance to pass that way, the entire family, vociferous and pleased, would tumble out to greet us, to bring a chair so that I might sit under their vine and eat some fruit with them. Gradually, the magic of the island settled over us as gently and clingingly as pollen. Every day had a tranquility, a timelessness about it, so that you wished it would never end. But then the dark skin of night would peel off, and there would be a fresh day waiting for us, glossy and colourful as a child's transfer, and with the same tinge of unreality. And thus concludes chapter 2, and I shall be back, no doubt, tomorrow, sometime in the space continuum, with chapter 3, which is titled The Rose Beetle Man. But in the meantime, I'm exhausted. I bid you all good afternoon. Have a beautiful day, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are in the space-time continuum. And remember, as always, my favourite motto: Never ever let the bastards grind you down. Live your very best lives with harm to none and competition with and for none. And rejoice in what is and what may yet still come, if miracles are to happen, and make every moment count. This is your moment and my moment and our moment. So on that note, we'll take a deep breath in. Let go of things that need to be let go of, and in its place invite things that might yet be comforting and encouraging and bountiful and beauteous. Bye for now, people of Earth.